Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep into some pretty awesome AI tools for all you .NET developers out there.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time to be building software on the .NET platform. The tools are just getting better and better.
Definitely. All right, so let's get right to it. First up, we have GitHub Copilot, which I feel like everyone's been talking about.
And for good reason. Copilot's this AI-powered coding assistant. It lives right in your IDE, like Visual Studio.
I've heard it described as like having a pair programmer sitting right next to you.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It suggests code, like completions. It can even generate whole functions for you sometimes.
And it helps with debugging too, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's super smart, powered by this massive AI model that's been trained on a ridiculous amount of code.
So it's not just completing lines of code, it's actually like understanding what you're trying to do.
Exactly. It gets the context, looks at your code and your project, and then predicts what you're going to write next.
That's so wild. I have to ask, can you give us like a real-world example of how a .NET dev might use Copilot?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Imagine you're building an API, with ASP.NET Core. You need to do those basic CRUD operations for some data.
Right, create, read, update, delete, the classic stuff.
Exactly. Copilot can basically do that for you. It analyzes your code, sees your beta model, and bam, it writes those methods. Saves you a bunch of time.
Wow, so you can focus on the more interesting parts of your application, not just the boilerplate stuff.
Yes, exactly. That's the point. Okay, so we've talked about Copilot. Now, what about ChatGPT? Seems like it's everywhere these days.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's using it for everything, even coding, right?
Totally. ChatGPT, especially that new GPT-4 version, it's super helpful for .NET devs, but it's a bit different from Copilot.
Oh, how so?
Well, Copilot's all about writing code for you in real time. ChatGPT is more of like a general helper. You can use it for a bunch of different coding tasks.
So it's like if I'm stuck on a tricky C# concept, I can just ask ChatGPT to explain it.
Yeah, like imagine you're struggling with a unit test that just won't pass.
Been there.
You describe the problem to ChatGPT in plain English, and it can actually give you suggestions, maybe even some sample code to fix it.
So it's like having a personal coding tutor. That's pretty awesome.
Totally. But it's not just about getting help. You can also use ChatGPT for brainstorming new ideas or even generating documentation.
Okay, so we've got Copilot for AI-powered code completion and ChatGPT for like broader coding assistance. Let's move on to a tool I bet a lot of our listeners already know, ReSharper.
Yeah, ReSharper. It's a classic. It's always been great for code analysis and refactoring in .NET.
So what's new? What's changed?
Well, now it's got AI integration. So it's even more powerful. It analyzes your code deeper, finds those tricky little code smells, performance bottlenecks, and security vulnerabilities, stuff other tools might miss.
So it's like having a super smart code reviewer that never gets tired.
That's it. It's like a little AI buddy saying, hey, maybe you should change this.
And the best part,
The best part is, it not only finds the problems, it actually tells you how to fix them. Usually just a few clicks, it's magic.
that is a major time saver, especially when you're working on a really big project. Do you have an example of how this AI-powered ReSharper might be used?
Okay, so let's say you're working on this super important app, right? Needs to be really fast and efficient, built on .NET Core.
Okay, got it. A performance-critical application.
Right. ReSharper with AI can analyze everything. Find inefficient code, like maybe you've got some crazy loops or unnecessary calculations.
And then it'll suggest how to make the code faster.
Boom! Exactly. Okay, so now we have tools that write code for us, tools that analyze our code, and even tools that refactor our code.
Sounds like AI's got us covered.
It does. But hold on, there's more. Now we need to talk about a tool that learns how you code, Tabnine.
Tabnine, huh? That's a new one for me. How's it different from Copilot?
So Copilot uses a more general model. Tabnine is all about personalization. It actually learns your style, your preferences, the way you write code.
So if I always use a certain coding convention or I like to structure my code in a particular way, Tabnine will pick up on that.
Exactly. It's like it knows your coding habits better than you do. This makes it super helpful for those repetitive tasks.
Because it can basically guess what you're going to type next.
You got it. Imagine building an ASP.NET MVC application. Lots of repetitive code for things like model properties and controller actions and view templates.
Right, lots of boilerplate, not very exciting.
Exactly. Tabnine can just handle that for you. You can focus on the more fun stuff.
So Tabnine is a real time saver, especially for those big projects with lots of repetitive code. Okay, so we've got tools for writing code, analyzing it, refactoring it, and even personalizing it. But what about security? Seems like AI could play a big role there too.
Absolutely, and that's where DeepCode steps in. This tool is an AI-powered code reviewer that's all about security. It finds vulnerabilities and code quality issues.
So it's like having an AI security expert looking over your shoulder all the time, making sure you're not doing anything dangerous.
Exactly. DeepCode has learned from a massive amount of code. It sees patterns that might mean there's a security hole. And it goes deeper than those obvious errors. It can even find subtle issues humans might miss.
That's pretty impressive. What's a real-world example of how I might use DeepCode in my .NET project?
All right, imagine you're building this massive enterprise-level application in .NET, right? One that handles really sensitive data.
Got it. High stakes, we need to make sure it's secure.
Exactly. DeepCode will scan everything, including all those third-party libraries you're using, looking for vulnerabilities, stuff like SQL injection attacks or cross-site scripting exploits.
So it's checking my code and all the libraries I'm using, making sure nothing slips through the cracks.
Yeah, and it doesn't just find the problems, it actually tells you how to fix them. Might suggest a patched version of a library or some other security measure.
That's a lifesaver for any .NET developer who wants to keep their applications safe and secure.
Okay, so now we've talked about AI for code completion, analysis, refactoring, even security. That's a lot. Now, what about Visual Studio and IntelliCode? Isn't that already built into Visual Studio?
Yeah, that's right. IntelliCode is a great example of how AI can be part of your workflow, like build right in. It uses machine learning to learn your code and your team's code, too.
So it gives you better suggestions because it understands how your team writes code. That's smart.
Yeah, it's all about making your team more consistent. So everyone is writing code that follows the same style and best practices.
Makes sense. Especially on big projects, keeping a consistent style is super helpful. What's a real example of how IntelliCode might be used?
Imagine you're setting up dependency injection in your ASP.NET Core application. It can be a lot of the same code over and over again.
Repetitive and kind of boring.
IntelliCode helps you complete those tasks way faster and make sure everything's consistent. Saves time and improves code quality. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're at tool number 7, Kite for C#. What makes this one stand out?
Kite is built for speed. It gives you super fast, super accurate code completions, specifically for C#.
Sounds helpful, especially when you're in the flow and don't want to be interrupted.
Exactly. But it goes deeper than that. It tries to understand the logic of your code, not just the syntax.
So it's not just completing words, it's completing thoughts almost.
Pretty much. It's great for those really complex parts of your application, like when you're writing tricky logic or working with complex data structures.
So where would Kite really shine in a .NET project? What's a good example?
Think about writing a complex LINQ query or implementing some intense business logic in an ASP.NET MVC controller. Kite can handle even those difficult scenarios, giving you great suggestions.
That's really impressive. It sounds like Kite could be super helpful when you're really in the weeds of your code. Now, we've covered a lot of powerful tools today, and I'm guessing a lot of them cost money. But what about for developers just starting out or who maybe don't have a big budget? Any free options?
You bet. There's this great tool called Codeium. It's completely free, AI-powered code completion for a bunch of languages, C# included.
Codeium. Okay, I'm writing that down. Tell me more.
It works with Visual Studio and a lot of other popular IDEs, and the code completions are surprisingly good for a free tool.
Might not have all the fancy features of the paid ones, but still a great way to get started with AI assistance.
For sure. Especially for individual devs or small teams working on smaller .NET Core projects. It's lightweight and easy to use.
Awesome. Okay, so we've covered tools that can help you write code faster, analyze your code, make it more secure, even personalize it to your style. Now let's talk about something that maybe doesn't get as much attention, dependency management.
Ah, yes, dependencies. They can be a pain.
But super important. How is AI helping .NET developers keep their projects safe and up to date when it comes to those libraries they're using?
This is where Snyk comes in. Snyk is an AI security tool that scans all those dependencies for any vulnerabilities.
I see. So like an AI bodyguard for my project, making sure all the libraries I'm using are safe.
That's a good way to put it. Snyk's got this huge database of known vulnerabilities, and it uses machine learning to keep it up to date, finds new threats.
And how does it work with .NET specifically?
Super easy. It integrates with .NET Core and .NET 6 and up. You just run Snyk, it checks all your NuGet packages against that database, and tells you if there's anything to worry about.
That's a huge help. It's easy to overlook those vulnerabilities hiding in your dependencies, especially with open source libraries.
Right, and the best part is, it doesn't just point out the problem, it actually gives you solutions.
With what?
It might suggest a patched version of the library that fixes the issue, or maybe a different library altogether. It can even help you automatically update your project to use the safer versions.
Wow, that's amazing. I can already see how much time and trouble Snyk could save developers.
Yeah,
And it could prevent a lot of those security headaches down the road.
exactly. Okay, so ready for the most mind-blowing tool of them all. We've saved the best for last.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
Codex by OpenAI. This is the technology behind GitHub Copilot, but it takes things even further.
All right, I'm listening. How does it work?
So imagine you can just tell this AI what you want your code to do in plain English, and it writes the code for you.
Wait, hold on. I can just describe what I want, and Codex will write the C# code for me.
Yeah, that's it. It's like having a personal AI programmer who can translate your ideas into code.
Okay, that's pretty amazing. Can you give me a real-world example? How might a .NET developer use Codex?
Sure, let's say you have to implement a really complex sorting algorithm, right? Or maybe you need to manipulate some data in a very specific way.
Something that would normally take hours of coding and debugging.
Exactly. But with Codex, you just explain it in plain English, and it generates the code for you. In C#, of course,
That's incredible. It feels like we're entering a whole new era of software development.
it is a huge change. Codex is especially good for tasks that require a lot of precision and logical thinking. Frees you up to focus on the bigger picture, the design and architecture.
This has been an amazing overview. So many awesome AI tools for .NET developers. But I think it's important to acknowledge not everyone is totally comfortable with AI playing such a big role in coding, right?
Yeah, there are definitely some valid concerns. Things like how AI might impact jobs and what responsible development looks like in this new world.
Right, some big questions to consider. And we'll dive into those topics in the next part of our deep dive. We'll talk about the challenges and ethical considerations of using AI for software development.
Exactly. But for now, it's pretty clear that AI is changing the game. It's an exciting time to be a .NET developer.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll be right back after a short break.
Welcome back. So we just finished talking about some pretty amazing tools.
Yeah, AI is really changing the game for .NET developers.
It really is. But like with any powerful technology, we got to think about the potential downsides too, right?
You're right, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. One concern I keep hearing is about AI and jobs. Like, if AI can write code, are developers going to be out of a job?
It's a fair question. A lot of people are worried about that. But honestly, I think it's more about AI helping us, not replacing us.
That's about humans and AI working together, like a team.
Exactly. AI can take care of those boring, repetitive tasks that no one really wants to do anyway.
Yeah, like writing that same boilerplate code over and over again.
Right. No one enjoys that. So AI can handle that, and developers can focus on the more interesting stuff, the creative problem solving.
So it's about using AI to make us better developers, not putting us out of work.
Exactly. We can level up our skills and work on more challenging projects.
Okay, so what about the potential for AI to, mess up? Can we really trust it to write good code, secure code?
That's a big one, right? What if AI introduces bugs or even security vulnerabilities? It's a valid concern, for sure. These tools are still being developed, and no software is perfect. There's always a chance for errors.
So how do we make sure we're using AI safely and responsibly?
Well, for one thing, these AI models are constantly being improved. They're learning all the time. And a lot of the tools we talked about have built-in safeguards, security features to help prevent those risks.
So it's about choosing the right tools and using them carefully.
Yeah, and it's about using our own judgment, too.
Yeah,
We still need to review the code, make sure it meets our standards, and do our due diligence.
makes sense. What about coding style and maintainability? If AI is writing a lot of our code, will that make our projects harder to manage?
That's a good point. But remember, some of those tools like IntelliCode and Tabnine actually promote consistency.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They learn from our team style and preferences.
Exactly. They can help everyone on the team write code that looks the same, follows the same best practices, makes it way easier to understand and maintain the code base.
So AI can actually help make our code better, not worse.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about some of the potential downsides, but I'm really excited about what the future holds for AI in .NET.
Me too. What trends are you seeing? Any predictions for what's coming next?
Well, one thing that's really cool is that these tools are becoming more accessible. More open source projects, more free tools like Codeium. That means everyone can try them out.
That's great. It opens up a world of possibilities for developers who maybe couldn't afford those expensive tools before.
Exactly. And as more people use these tools, we're going to see even more innovation. I bet we'll start seeing AI tools that are super specialized, like just for web development or mobile apps or even games.
That makes a lot of sense. As the technology gets better, it'll be able to tackle more specific tasks.
Right. And another thing I think we'll see is like AI being used throughout the whole development process, not just for individual tasks.
What do you mean by that?
Well, right now we have tools for code completion, for code analysis, but in the future, maybe AI will help us plan our projects, estimate effort, generate test cases, automate deployments, like a whole AI-powered development workflow.
Wow, that's a pretty amazing vision. It would really change the way we build software.
It would be revolutionary. Oh, and one more prediction, I think we'll see a lot more emphasis on explainability.
Explainability, what's that?
So as we start relying more and more on AI, we need to understand how it's making decisions, right? Like, why is it suggesting this code or flagging that security risk?
So we need to trust the AI, but to trust it, we need to understand it.
Exactly. Transparency is super important. If we don't know how the AI is working, it's hard to trust it completely.
Especially when we're building software that could affect people's lives or critical systems.
Right. So I think this need for explainability will drive the development of new AI techniques, new tools that can help us understand how these models work, maybe even AI that can explain itself.
That would be amazing. It would make AI feel more like a partner, not just a black box.
I agree. Explainable AI is going to be key for getting more developers on board, making them feel comfortable using these tools.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. I'm really starting to see the potential of AI, both the challenges and the opportunities. I'm curious, what about our listeners? What are they thinking?
Yeah, what are your thoughts? What excites you about AI and .NET development? What concerns you?
It's a lot to process for
Yeah.
sure, but one thing's for certain. AI is here to stay, and the future of .NET development is going to be pretty amazing. All right, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into the world of AI for .NET developers.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey exploring all these incredible tools, hasn't it?
Definitely. From AI-powered code completion to AI-driven security analysis, it's clear that AI is changing the game for us .NET folks.
And we've talked about some of the challenges too, right? Like making sure we're using AI responsibly and addressing those concerns about jobs.
Right, it's important to have those conversations. But honestly, I'm just so excited about the potential here. It's like having a super smart coding buddy who's always there to help you out.
I know, right? It's amazing to see how far AI has come, and I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Me too. So, as we wrap things up here, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. If you could design your own AI tool specifically for .NET development, what problem would it solve?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's like a developer's dream, right? To have an AI tool that perfectly solves your biggest pain point.
What about you? What kind of AI tool would you create?
Hmm. You know, I think I'd build a tool that could automatically generate unit tests.
Oh, that's clever. Tell me more.
Well, writing unit tests is important, right? We all know that. But it can be so tedious and time-consuming, especially for large projects.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like you spend more time writing tests than writing the actual code.
Exactly. So my AI tool would analyze your code and automatically generate a comprehensive suite of unit tests covering all the important scenarios and edge cases.
Wow, that would be a huge time saver. It would free up developers to focus on the more creative and challenging aspects of their work.
Right. And it would also lead to more robust and reliable software because, let's be honest, sometimes we skip writing tests when we're short on time or just feeling lazy.
I'm guilty of that sometimes.
It happens to the best of us. But with an AI-powered unit test generator, there'd be no excuse for skimping on tests.
I love it. Okay, so we've got an AI tool that refactors legacy code and one that generates unit tests. What else can we come up with?
Well, maybe an AI tool that could predict performance bottlenecks before they even happen.
Oh, that would be incredible. It could analyze your code, your architecture, even your infrastructure,
Yeah.
and identify potential performance issues early on.
Yeah, it could give you recommendations on how to optimize your code or even suggest changes to your infrastructure to prevent those bottlenecks from ever becoming a problem.
That would be a game changer, especially for teams working on high-performance applications or systems that handle a lot of traffic.
Absolutely. It would be like having a performance expert on your team, constantly monitoring and optimizing your application.
These are some seriously cool ideas. It's amazing to think about all the possibilities.
I know, right? And who knows, maybe someone listening to this will be inspired to create the next big AI tool for .NET developers.
I hope so. This is such an exciting field to be a part of. There's so much potential for innovation and growth.
It really feels like we're just getting started with AI and software development. And as .NET developers, we're in a great position to be at the forefront of this revolution.
Absolutely. So to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to embrace these tools, explore their potential, and never stop learning.
The future of .NET development is bright, and AI is going to play a huge role in shaping that future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI for .NET developers. We'll catch you next time.